Hey everyone, welcome to the next unboxing video that I have, and this is one of my all-time favorite aircraft. And if you remember from my F-16 unboxing video, I kind of made note that once you start going down the road of EDFs, pretty soon you need to have more EDFs. And there's one that's been on my list forever to own, and that is an A-10 Thunderbolt II Warthog. So one of my all-time favorite aircraft, on par with probably the F-14 Tomcat in terms of really cool planes that I just love. And I have the UMX A-10, the E-Flite A-10, and I've had an absolute blast flying that little guy around. But I've always wanted to kind of step up into a more serious A-10, and this came out a little while ago, so it's been out for a while now, and I've had my eye on it ever since. I just didn't know if I had the skill set to fly an EDF, but I learned with the 64mm F-16 that flying an EDF is not really all that difficult at all. In fact, it was much easier than I expected. So once I have crossed over the bridge of flying EDFs, I had to get the A-10, and this here is the E-Flite 64mm A-10 model. This is the bind and fly version of it, and we're going to go ahead and get this thing out of the box here. But one of the things I really love about this E-Flite model is that with the bind and fly, I get AS3X, and I also can get Safe Select. However, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to use Safe Select because I still have my DX6 radio. So I can link it to the flaps, which a lot of guys do, and I think the manual actually even gives you instructions on how to do that. So when the flaps are fully deployed, you're in safe mode. However, knowing how stable an A-10 is, I mean, that's what makes it such an incredible close air support platform. Those real long, straight wings just produce a lot of lift. It lets you kind of loiter around the battlefield for a while. That should translate well into a very stable, easy flying EDF. In fact, this thing probably is closer to a flight characteristics of a serious prop plane than it is more of like a jet, like maybe like my F-16 with its much more thin wings and kind of a higher performance envelope. This is really more of my flying style. The A-10 is kind of my type of an aircraft. I can fly low, I can fly slow, I can dive down on targets, I can do all sorts of really cool stuff. I'm not all about the fastest speed, this isn't about going fast. This is about looking awesome, loitering around the battlefield and picking off targets. So this is going to be a lot of fun for me to fly because it's going to fit my flying style probably the best. And as usual, that noise you heard is one of the cats finding out that we have a brand new empty Horizon box over there in the corner. And I'll tell you what, cats love boxes, so my apologies for that. But let's go ahead and let's get this incredibly awesome A-10 out of the box, shall we? All right, well, we have the outer box off the A-10 here, so we can kind of take a look. And of course, Horizon does such an incredible job packaging these things. It fits like a puzzle, and everything is well protected in shipping. And the A-10, of course, is no different than that. This is also the first opportunity that I've had to ever see one. I've never looked at the E-Flite A-10 in person before. I've never seen one before, so it's always exciting when you finally get one. You kind of see it here in the box a little bit, and you can start to see some of the details coming together on it. This thing is going to be a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and start taking it out of the box. We'll start talking about it as we move along, but let's go ahead and get started. I guess the very first pieces that come out of the box here are a pair of, actually it's a pair of AIM-9 Sidewinders. These are used primarily for air-to-air defense against any potential enemy air targets that could be pursuing. So it's really more of a self-defense weapon. These go underneath the wings. It's kind of an interesting loadout that it includes 4 AIM-9s. Usually it's 2 AIM-9s on one side and then the ECM pod on the other. But the cool thing about the A-10 is it can carry just such a wide range of ordnance and weaponry and do all sorts of types of missions. So there's almost, in some ways, almost no wrong way to load out in A-10. I can also tell you that the AIM-9s look a lot more proportionally correct than they did on my my 64mm F-16. So these are very cool. It's one of those things where I don't know if I will bother to 3D print new ones or leave what I got, because honestly, these look pretty good for factory sidewinders. So we're gonna go ahead and put these off to the side. You know, obviously there's limitations on how accurate you can get in terms of foam when it comes to things like a missile like that. So really, they look pretty good. I'm really happy with how that turned out so far. The next step is try to figure out what to take out next. Obviously, the missiles were easy. They were in a little pocket here. So let's just keep going. What do we have inside this little thing here? Got to keep unraveling. Keep unraveling. Oh, it is the paved penny pod. And this is cool. This, of course, fits on the side of the fuselage and hangs down below. It is separate. I don't know if it's I thought maybe it was magnetically attached, but it does not appear that there's any magnets on it. It looks like it's a separate piece. This might be a good option to include magnets on it, just in case you to bump this. It doesn't break off, because this hangs down below on the fuselage. So we'll go ahead and move this out of the way. We also got a good collection of no-step decals, as well as some extra decals for vents in the airframe. Lots of no-step decals, so that'll be fun to install. Plus the hardware. And it looks to me like 4 screws is all that's needed to put this together. Now, I do know there's some glue involved as well, but in terms of hardware, it's just simply 4 screws. Okay, we'll kind of keep taking things apart here and seeing where we go with it. All right, we got some tape that runs across here, and I want to go ahead and take that tape and cut it and get it out of the way here, because I don't want that hitting the surface of the aircraft and damaging the paint surface at all. So let me cut that away. All right, always good to get that tape out of there. You don't want it to damage the airframe at all. So we got more foam pieces here to help in packaging, and let's go ahead and take these pieces off. We're getting close to getting the wings out. All right. Yeah, we got a few more pieces of ordnance we'll start with, and then we'll get the wings going. So here we have a pair of what appears to be Maverick missiles. These are anti-tank weapons. You can use them for they're not exactly, the yellow tips on here would actually normally be a clear lens, but of course you're not going to make clear foam. So these are Maverick missiles here. So we'll go ahead and set these off. Those actually aren't too bad either. It's amazing how much more accurate some of the weapons are on the A-10 than what I've seen on other models from other brands in the past. You know, they've really come a long way on making these things look more scale correct, which for a scale guy like me, that is awesome. I love the fact that we're starting to see stuff that looks more accurate, more like a flying scale model. Here looks like we have a pair of general purpose bombs. Not exactly sure which kind these are, doesn't really matter, but really nicely modeled. They're already attached to the pylons, and the pylons have these quick release features in here, so you can kind of pop them into the wing and pull them back out again. I love having this kind of stuff. You don't have to glue the ordnance to the wing. They're not magnetically held in. They're actually little plastic clips. You slide them into the wing, slide them back off when you want to take them off. I think that's great. I'm really excited because I have a feeling I will probably buy another set of ordnance and play around with some 3D printed designs and maybe change the loadout completely and give me a whole bunch of different weapons that I can put on the A-10. Just like I've done with my P-51s, I took a couple different types of bombs, rocket pods, and drop tanks, and I've been able to adapt them to my P-51s. And I think I'm going to do the same thing here with the A-10, in that I'm going to get some extra ordnance so that I can cut the pylons off and make whatever I want on here, because I think I can have a lot of fun designing some more weapons for this thing, because tell you what, you can never have too many things hanging off your A-10. Okay, next up is a pair of rocket pods. I think these are, I used to remember exactly what these are called. It's been a long time since I've studied up on my, my A-10 knowledge. I think these are just like 5-inch rockets. Very similar to like what the Apache helicopter has underneath its wings as well, and they're just kind of dummy rockets that shoot out of here. Pretty cool loadout, kind of unique. Another one of those cool things you can hang off an A-10 for close air support. This is turning out to be one of the longer unboxing videos just because I have to get all the ordnance out of here. And I think that's totally cool. I'm so happy they included all this cool stuff for me to hang out, put onto the aircraft. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun changing around the mission profile for my A-10 with all sorts of different loadouts. Here we have the vertical stabilizer and rudder. It's nice. Wow, this is pretty cool. So they have all the rivets and everything are already on here as well. It's got some extra. I think these are actually some of the ECM electronic countermeasure pods that stick out of here. These little blisters, and they have decals on them. The slime lights are on here as well. Very cool. This is. I tell you, the detail, the level of detail on this A-10 already exceeds my expectations. It's just this thing is so cool, and I haven't even got it out of the box yet. It's got the pre-installed servo. I believe these are plastic geared servos on here, but they do have the ball end links installed. And here's a little rudder cable on here, a little wire. And that, of course, attaches onto the horizontal stabulator. And of course, you get two of these because an A-10, so many things on the A-10 are redundant, and it was designed that way. So you get two engines, you get two tails. Even the landing gear don't fully retract on purpose. So everything is kind of redundant in order to make sure that if any one of these pieces gets hit, the pilot can bring the aircraft back safely. But here we go with the vertical stabilizer and rudder. So we'll go ahead and move these off to the side. And next up we have the horizontal stabilizer as well. It comes, once again, beautiful rivet detail and panel lines on here. Just absolutely amazing. It's cool to see this level of detail in a foam plane. I mean, this is... I'm just blown away by everything that I'm looking at so far on this A-10. This thing is a home run for sure. I built a lot of Warbirds, P-51s. I've done a lot of other aircraft, but so far this one is completely blowing me away with the level of detail they put into it. So pre-installed servos again here in the vertical or the horizontal stabilizer. The elevators are on here, and once again, you got ball end links on the control horns as well. All the wiring is also pre-ran in here, and this is where the rudder and the vertical stabilizer would connect to, and that, of course, is where the rudder will plug into. Slime lights are already installed on this as well. All right, I think at this point we can get the wing out. And I gotta say, I've been staring at this thing for a few minutes now as we get the rest of the pieces out. And this is totally cool. Look at this. Here is the wing. Once again, beautiful detail. The panel lines, the rivet. Even got the refueling decals on here. I mean, this thing, it's amazing. Like I said, the detail. That you don't see this detail when you look at pictures on the website. You don't see this detail when you watch a lot of other videos. I know it's difficult for me to show it to you here, but I'm just going to describe it, and it's beautiful. I'll try to get some close-up footage of it when we're done getting everything out of the box here, but it's absolutely beautiful. The foam finish on here is just remarkable. Totally blown away by everything I'm seeing on this A-10. Got the servo plugs right here. This is for flaps, ailerons, and lights. And of course, they got guide pins on here, so no wires are going to need to be installed. You simply plug it up into the fuselage, and you are good to go. And if you remember from earlier, I talked about how the landing gear don't fully retract, and you can see that right here. So if the A-10 was damaged and the hydraulics were shot out and they could not get the landing gear down, the wheels actually, the tires protrude on purpose so that if they have to do a wheels up landing, it's less damage to the airframe by doing that. And there's plenty of pictures of A-10s in combat conditions that have had to make emergency landings with the hydraulic units shot out, and the aircraft is really not damaged at all for landing with the gear up. And that was a design. That was designed right from the very beginning into the A-10. It's one of those survivability pieces. It's also got, I think these are flare dispensers that are behind the landing gear. It's got little vents in here to replicate the flare dispensers, either flare or chaff. I don't remember which one it is. I'll have to look into it. Like I said, I used to follow the A-10 so closely back in the 90s during Desert Storm, which actually, even though this video is going to be published much later, today's actually the 30th anniversary of Desert Storm starting. And so I used to follow the A-10 so close during Desert Storm, but my knowledge is kind of shifted over to the World War II stuff, so I'm a little bit rusty. But don't worry, I'll get back at research here on the A-10 before this one gets done. So let's go ahead and put the wing down, and we are quickly running out of pieces. Okay, a couple of other big foam pieces will set out of the way here. Like I said, the packaging is always just so impressive. We got the A-10 manual here. We'll be definitely reading up on that. And we have a canopy. We'll get this out first. Boy, even I gotta say, even the detail inside this cockpit is pretty good. It's got a printed decal inside here to represent the instrument panel, and it does look pretty good. Of course, knowing me, I'm sure I will cut the canopy off here and do some additional detailing to it. But from the factory, the amount of detail that's on the ejection seat is really, really nice. This looks really solid in here. It's not going to take a lot of work for me to kind of detail this up just a little bit more. But yeah, it needs a heads-up display for sure. I always like to make a heads-up display for my airplanes, and so I'll be doing that with this. But yeah, it looks good. Yeah, and one thing I loved about the A-10 is how analog the airplane is. If you looked at the cockpit of a real A-10, you would look inside of it, and it could easily be mistaken for a late World War II airplane. I mean, it's all analog in there. There's very little electronics, and this is definitely very much an analog aircraft compared to something like the F-22 or the F-35. And that's why I love it. I think this thing it's one of the coolest airplanes ever designed, ever built. And anyone who's ever been in combat on the ground will tell you there's nothing greater than hearing the sound of an A-10 coming to kind of rescue you. And if you go on YouTube, there's plenty of videos out there of troops when they need an A-10 and they call it in and they hear that familiar sound from the gatling gun. They're all hooting and hollering around because it's pretty awesome to be rescued by the A-10. So with that, let's go ahead and get the fuselage out. All right, here it is. The fuselage is out. This is it's totally cool. I'm not gonna lie. The A-10 has completely blown me away in terms of how the aircraft looks, in terms of all the detail, the quality of the foam, all the additional decals. This is like probably the most amount of decals I've ever seen installed on an RC plane from the factory. They're everywhere. It's fantastic. I love seeing that kind of stuff. It adds so much more realism to the aircraft when it's got all the access panels drawn in here. The lifting points are on here, the warning symbols, the fuel tank filling areas, the engine oil decals. It's just totally cool. Yeah, it's just awesome by far. So it's got a little piece of foam here in the cockpit battery tray area, so I'll pull that out of the way. We'll take a look inside here. You can see the nose wheel retracted. It's got a wood tray that runs from about here back into the fuselage quite a ways. So that really helps strengthen this long nose, which was always kind of a concern with the UMX plane, especially because mine was a belly lander. You really had to make sure you nailed that landing right, because the nose was pretty long and fragile on that, and you just needed to be aware of that on the landing. I never had any trouble with mine, but plenty of other people did. Obviously, this is a much bigger airframe, so you can get a lot thicker in the foam walls here, and they also added that reinforcement in here. Uses the EC5 plug. This is 6S powered, so it's considerably bigger battery than my UMX. You see the BEC, the battery elimination circuit, is installed. I have not figured out where the receiver is. I think it's actually down underneath, and it is. So the receiver is actually in a little pocket down underneath here. And this, of course, is the AR-636B, pretty standard receiver. And it does have AS3X and Safe Select, and that goes underneath here, so we'll pop that in. Oh man, I tell you, this is cool. Seeing the detail on the Gatling gun on here is just awesome. And of course, you know, the Gatling gun starts here, but the back of it is all the way back there in the airframe. It's almost like the airplane was built around the gun. The pilot sat in a titanium shell, like a bathtub, to help protect him from small arms fire down below from the ground. It's got twin 64mm EDFs in here, and even the fan blades look real. I mean, the fan blades even look right. This thing is just this thing is cool. I tell you, I'm totally blown away by this A-10 model. And of course, 2 engines, because why? Well, you want the redundancy. If one gets shot out, you have another one. And if you've ever been to the Air Zoo down in Kalamazoo, they actually had an A-10 based in that was based at the Battle Creek International Guard Station there that flew in Iraq, that was hit by, I believe, an RPG, and it blew the entire engine nacelle apart. And it's cool because they have that on display down there. You can actually go down and take a look at it. The aircraft, of course, made it back without any problem because, like I said before, everything's redundant on the A-10. So this, like I said, this is one of my favorite airplanes. The A-10 is one of my all-time favorite modern-day airplanes, and it's probably the most unmodern of a modern-day airplane. And I think E-Flite has done a fantastic job capturing so much of the awesomeness of the A-10 into the scale model. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention, it does have navigation lights on the end of the wingtips as well, so be great for kind of flying in those low light conditions. So if you're out doing a sortie at dusk and need to come back home again, you do have some navigation lights on it. But overall, totally blown away by the aircraft. The only bad thing is that I look at it now and I don't feel the urge to repaint it as much as I did over the last 6 months to a year that I've been studying the aircraft. This does have this unique flipper scheme to it. That's the name. I don't know why it's called that, but that is the scheme that is on this aircraft. It does help a little bit with orientation versus the kind of the light and dark ghost gray, just those 2 gray colors that's used by the U.S. Air Force today. That can be really difficult to orientate in the air. So the flipper scheme at least does give you some sort of definition so you can see the aircraft. I was worried about that with my UMX A-10, and it really did help out. I have played around with a lot of different schemes on what I want to do with the A-10, mostly because I rarely ever leave anything the way it comes from the factory. But the hard part on this one is it looks so awesome the way it is. I'm going to be hard pressed to make it look any better. Like I said, there are certain planes I've got that as soon as I looked at them, I says, I'm going to repaint that airplane. That scheme is not going to work for me. My E-Flite F-16 was that way. That Texas scheme had to go. But this one, it makes it a little bit more difficult because it does look so awesome from the factory. If I do repaint it, there's a chance that it will be painted up in the Michigan Air National Guard colors, and it will probably be the one that was stationed at Selfridge Air National Guard Base, which is where my 64mm F-16 was. And the reason why I'm looking at doing that is because the lineage of that fighter group can be traced all the way back to World War II, and it flies from the same group that my P-51 Mustangs flew with. So I can kind of keep that entire lineage from World War II all the way up to today, and also make it more Michigan based. I can either pick from our Battle Creek International Guard Base or the Red Devils out of Selfridge, or I may pick a Desert Storm scheme, which would be the woodland camo, the 2 tones of green and gray that was used during Desert Storm. One of my all-time favorite schemes, but a lot more difficult to replicate than probably some of the other ones. So I got a lot of ideas going around. So if you guys have any ideas on what I should do for a paint scheme on my A-10 here, by all means, let me know. I will be doing that work before I go through and paint it, just because it's a lot easier to do that when it's disassembled than when painted. But you look at it here on the table, and it's really tough to justify painting it, because I tell you what, this thing is a home run, and it looks so much cooler in person than I ever imagined. I just didn't know what I was going to expect when I took it out of the box, and I am blown away. That's all I can say. I'm blown away. This is it's one of the cooler planes that I think I've ever unboxed. I love it. I can't wait to get it together. It's January right now, like I mentioned. It's January 16th, so it's the anniversary of Desert Storm, and it seems to be the coolest thing to be unboxing an A-10 on that anniversary. That also means it's going to be many months before I get a chance to fly it with Michigan Winter, so that will give me some opportunity to repaint it, play around with some different Ordnance, different loadouts on it, talk to Callie about what decals I want to go with, or maybe decide just to leave it as is and fly it. I have not decided yet, but it's totally cool. So if you guys got any questions on the E-Flite 64mm A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Warthog, by all means, leave them in the comments below. I'm gonna go figure out what I want to do with this thing next, because I got it here on the table, and part of me wants to go get the glue and put it together now, and the other part of me, it says we should think about painting it first. But this is a home run, and if you love A-10s like I do, this is definitely the one to get.